Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Another worldwide hour, another transmission globally. You are listening to the voice of Alex Jones from Austin, Texas. That's me. And I know that we've got a bunch of callers. Webster Tarpley will be with us via cell phone as he drives to a TV interview for about 30 minutes. Then we'll take some calls. And then popping in, he just won his primary up in Michigan for Congress. That's right, Kurt Haskell, who witnessed the federal government getting the underwear bomber on the plane to blame the jihadis so they could have a pretext to have TSA roll out the body scanners. He's going to be popping in for about 10 minutes as well to talk about that victory so far. And we'll also get into Parkinson's sufferer arrested for not smiling in Olympic men's cycling race. This is the total paranoia of the 1984 police state. Actually, in 1984, if you didn't smile during the 10 minutes of hate while worshiping BB, Big Brother, you would be taken away to the ministry of love. And then, of course, the propagandists all worked at the ministry of truth. War is peace. Freedom is, of course, a bad thing. Now, we're going to be talking to Dr. Webster Tarpley, his doctorate of history, also an economist, about his visits to war-torn, globalist-torn Syria. Here in a moment. He was also in Libya during the bombardment and predicted all of what's now unfolding. And now we've gone from them denying al-Qaeda as the main force to the CFR last week. We read the article last night on the news saying that al-Qaeda is brave and bringing leadership and hardness and is doing a great job blowing up churches and killing the Alawites and the Jews and other people. And our media is like, it's wonderful. We even had Dr. Steve Pachenik on, who's run the overthrow of governments, saying he thought it was wrong and then doesn't like the Russians and has fought against them famously, but has to pretty much say they're in the right here. But just amazing times to have a government completely insane and out of control. So we are going to be breaking that down as well with Mr. Tarpley. Webster, breaking down the geopolitical situation right now. What do you make of the fact that al-Qaeda is being praised as the best thing since sliced bread?
Well, it's a sign of desperation, and I think the desperation comes from the fact that the Arab Spring is turning into the Saudi fall. And by that I mean, up to now, we've had these fake color revolutions that didn't really accomplish anything, right? The Time magazine cover was that Egypt was, after all, the revolution that wasn't. Very little changed in Tunisia, very little changed in Egypt. A lot changed in Libya, mainly for the worse. And, of course, what's going on in Syria now is the deployment of al-Qaeda as the NATO infantry. But now something else is happening, and I think this is actually a promising thing. Springtime of nations could be at hand. And what we're talking about here are the absolute monarchies, right? The feudal, reactionary, absolute monarchies of the Middle East. You're talking about Saudi Arabia, of course, the big one, the kingpin of the whole thing, but you've got Qatar, you've got Kuwait, that American soldiers actually went and died for to reinstall the emir of Kuwait. You've got the United Arab Emirates, which is a congeries of these feudal monstrosities, right, relics of barbarism. You've got Oman, don't forget them. Sultan Qaboos, down there at the end, at the bottom of the Gulf. They continue. The Kingdom of Jordan, right? The Hashemite dynasty. King Abdullah is very much a part of the attack on Syria. And we also should remember Morocco is still a dynasty. So you've got, I guess, 7 or 8 of these monarchies, except that they're not just monarchies. They're different than what you have in most other parts of the world, right? You look at the Dutch, the Belgians, Sweden, Norway. There are still royal houses there. These are, in these cases, constitutional monarchies.
Well, they're vestigial.
With somewhat limited power.
They're vestigial.
Well, I hope so. I mean, I hope they're on their way out. And, of course, then you have the British. The British crown, of course, has some pretty serious real power, some of it on paper, some not. But right now, we've had the Saudis and Qatar astonishingly taking the lead in trying to destroy Syria. And now it looks to me like there's a realistic idea that the thing may boomerang, that there's going to be blowback, and the blowback may be real revolutions, right? A real revolution is when you overthrow a monarchy. I think that's elementary. There was a real revolution in Egypt when they got rid of King Farouk. There was a real revolution in Iran when they got rid of the Shah of Iran. So there are some real revolutions waiting to happen, and these are the ones you're not hearing about, you're not reading about. There have been riots going on in Bahrain continuously for a year and a half. They've gotten more intense over the last couple of weeks. And in Saudi Arabia, you have this so-called Eastern Province, right? Qatif, Qatif. This is where the oil is located to a significant degree, but it's also where the population are Shiites, and they don't like the sort of Wahhabite extremist rule of the House of Saud. And people have been getting killed there. There have been big demonstrations suppressed by security forces. Not a word coming from Hillary Clinton about any of that, right? Not a word from Obama or Susan Rice or from the Republicans, for that matter. And we've just gotten an opinion from a kind of a Saudi expert who says that he thinks that we right now in the Middle East, of course, we've got the Ramadan holiday, right? Ramadan tends to suppress certain kinds of activity because you can't eat anything while the sun is out. So you got to eat breakfast really early and then fast all day, and then you break your fast when it gets to be dark. So it means that the amount of energy that people have is somewhat limited. This expert that I'm referring to, when he saw the demonstrations, he said, look, when the Ramadan ends, and that's in a couple of weeks, then there's going to be a big upsurge. There's going to be a big increase in the agitation against the House of Saud. And the other thing that he said, which I think is also significant, that the royal family of Saudi Arabia is beginning to splinter. In other words, there are factions that are emerging. And if that happens, that is, of course, the only way that an oligarchy like that could be disturbed in their power. But it seems to be what's happening. And I guess the big headline in all of this is Prince Bandar, right? Prince Bandar that we've talked about in the past, right? The main political operative of the House of Saud in our time is Bandar Bush. He was here from, I think, 1983 to 2005. He was operating here in Washington, D.C. He was made the chief of Saudi intelligence in the same week that the Saudis were an integral part of that attack on Syria, right? The bomb in the government headquarters that killed the defense minister, generals, the crisis manager, Assad's brother-in-law, and so forth. The Saudis obviously had a big role in that attack on Syria, and within 4 or 5 days, there was a bomb at the Saudi intelligence headquarters, which officially killed the number 2 guy, the deputy to Prince Bandar. But Prince Bandar had just been named the head of Saudi intelligence, and there are reports coming from my friend Thierry Maison, not really totally confirmed, but then there are some people on the other side who say, no, it's not true, that Bandar also succumbed to that bombing attack. And whether that is true or not, I think you can see that
all right,
something big is changing.
Sure, Webster, let's look at the wide. Hold on one second, my friend. I was about to go to break here. Give us a big pullback, the big picture, geopolitically with Iran, the proxy war in Syria. Where is all this going on your radar screen?
Well, you mention Iran. Iran is coming out more and more in support of Syria. Russia is coming out more and more in support of Syria. The reason for that is that July 18th bomb, the big one that killed the defense minister, who was, interestingly, the top Christian in the government. He had to die. From that time on, it's more and more clear that the Syrian rebels are terrorists. A lot of us have known this for a long time, but it's something that you can then act on. The rebels have also kidnapped...
No, our media is now saying Al-Qaeda is sexy. The London Guardian was like, man, they get it done. And the CFR is I was like breathlessly talking about it like it was Marilyn Monroe or something.
Double think rules the day. After that bomb went off, you had a visit by the Syrian, by the Iranian, the Syrian went to Iran. This is Moallem, heavyset guy. The foreign minister, Moallem, went to see his counterpart there in Iran, and that's Salehi. And Salehi said, I'm warning all those Arab countries that are fanning the flames in Syria, if you keep this up, you should not imagine that you will remain immune to this. I'm basically interpreting what he said, reading between the lines. He said, this is going to boomerang against you. And this, I think, was a signal.
Well, what he said is this is the beginning of World War III, and that Iran is all in now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the rhetoric is always thick and fast in the Middle East, but I think the big thing is that there's a serious mobilization of networks, right? Maybe it's Iranian networks, maybe Russian networks, maybe there are other networks, all kinds of possibilities that somehow...
That's right. Proxy wars go two ways. We'll be right back and talk about special ops, black op attacks all over the Middle East against the nations pushing the proxy war to the doorsteps of Russia. Webster Tarpley's our guest. I'm Alex Jones of Infowars.com. His site's tarpley.net. Stay with us. All right, we only got one segment left with Webster Tarpley. We'll get him back on for a full hour on the nightly news soon via video Skype. He's on the road right now. Webster, here's the deal. This isn't just chatter. It's admission. They're going live with it, promoting military on the streets, checkpoints, brigades in every city, basically martial law. All our police contacts that we've talked to around the country, on air and off, confirmed sources I have said, yeah, they're told basically something huge in October. Now, we know just because they're telling police that doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it means the safety is off. They're looking at an Iran attack. They think real proxy networks, not stage false flags, may hit. They're going to capitalize on that to take liberties. They got an Army report out saying the Tea Party is going to link up with Al-Qaeda. I mean, it is just... They don't care if everything's screwed up. They use it as a power grab. How much better would it have been with Mohammed Mossadegh, pro-West, a freedom lover, secular, building up Iran? It would be a beautiful tourist destination, a great place. We wouldn't have all this going on, but the British strategy of tension, they've just got to wreck all these countries so they can be at the top of the poop pile. I mean, it is really a horrible situation. Why are they gearing up for total martial law in the U.S.? Is it the Iran option? And how perilous is the world situation right now as countries square off?
Well, it's perilous because of the world economic and financial depression, and this is the absolute bedrock of any analysis. You've got to understand that we are in a situation between 1929 and 1933. There's a depression. Any analysis that doesn't start from the depression, the panic, and then the crash, and now a prolonged, protracted, and worsening depression, then you'll go wrong. And what you saw back in the 1930s is this three-stage process. Economic depression leads to authoritarian governments and dictatorships, and then that leads to world war. Now, we're stuck in that. The thing that I would strongly recommend everybody, do not, repeat, not go chasing after every tentacle that the enemy does. Don't go, protesting everything in the world, right? In other words, that amounts to surrendering to the will of the enemy. You've got to come into this with your own autonomous organizing perspective. Mine is called the National Anti-Austerity Committees. The presidential election is, I think, largely meaningless. Whether it's Obama, whether it's Romney, both are bad, obviously. In December, under the slogan of the fiscal cliff and the grand bargain, during the lame duck session of Congress, an attempt will be made to impose genocidal austerity, killer cuts on the American people. That's where the action is. The question is, can you break the power of finance capital, or can you not, right? People went chasing after Occupy Wall Street, run by various kinds of anarchist fakers. It's a failure. People ran after candidates in the Republican Party. That's also a failure. Now you've got to understand, it's a much bigger task. It's much harder. It's not easy. It's not prepackaged. You've got to have your own economic program. How would you take power and lead the country out of a depression? And not by prating about free markets, not by talking about genocidal cuts, not by going for the ideology of either of these two parties, but an actual competent recovery program. I have one on my site, tarpley.net, right? It's a 5-point program, but we've got to somehow get a mass base for that.
And then we can be like France and have 75% tax rates on top.
Well, I don't know. That's not the end of the world. U.S. did fine with tax rates that high.
But let me just stop you for a minute, because I mean, I get the little sideways jabs there. Here's the deal. I don't want corporate welfare, and I don't like them shutting down their competition. That's real free American system. But all these big government systems, the government set up by the globalists to siphon off any type of money we try to put out there to get the economy going. I'm not even against those models, but it's all so corrupt. It seems like it's in a terminal implosion. So the best way is to have more people with government off their back. Everybody I know would expand their businesses if they had government off their back.
Yeah, but Wall Street is on the government's back.
I agree.
Wall Street runs everything. Wall Street rules the world. The government is a bureau of Wall Street. So.
I agree. All I ever hear about is more taxes on me, though, not on the offshore banks.
No, well, if you talk to me, then you'd hear about Wall Street sales tax. Let's slap a 1% turnover fee, transaction tax, on everything over $1 million. So if they want to do flash trading and program trading, that's great. They're going to pay 1%.
I agree with that to stop the fraud. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the point is, you've got to have your own recovery program, and you've got to fight for it. And I think this is the big thing.
I'll tell you what, Webster, let's get you on sometime next week for a full hour, or commercial-free on the nightly news. During the interview, commercial-free. We have commercials at the start and the end. Well, let's have you on for a full hour to lay out your recovery plan, and then we can debate it. How's that sound?
Delighted. And get ready for December. Get ready for the lame duck and the so-called fiscal cliff.
Hey, you're on for an hour next week. Let's set it up right now.